Hi, everybody. We are watching all the news happening in the United States and around the world. My name is Vladimir Duthiers. Welcome to CBS News 24/7. Let's begin. President Trump starts the week promising a new round of tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports coming into the United States, what he is threatening, and the reaction to his plan. Plus, the president reinstates his maximum pressure campaign on Iran. We'll explore this tenuous relationship with the country under a second Trump administration. But we start with this. President Trump is back at the White House after attending Super Bowl 59 last night and says that more new tariffs will be announced today. This time, he's imposing tariffs on 25% of all steel and aluminum imports coming into the United States. A new CBS News poll shows 53% of those polled approve of the job the president is doing in office so far. When it comes to tariffs, those polled were in favor of the president imposing them against China, but did not like that he's imposing them on Europe, Canada, and Mexico. So let's bring in CBS News White House reporter Aaron Navarro to talk more about this. Aaron, how are our trading partners reacting to this announcement from the president?
Nothing immediately, but we already have seen Canada and Mexico show that they're willing to respond with threats of retaliatory tariffs when Trump brought this up earlier during his tenure. They eventually, of course, found an agreement regarding immigration and kind of negotiated with him there for a temporary pause in those tariffs. But specifically in Canada, we could see more this Friday when there is an economic summit in Toronto where Justin Trudeau will meet with business and labor leaders. Just noting on these tariffs, past presidents have had steel tariffs before, including George W. Bush. But this could really impact home building and auto industries here in the U.S. So certainly something to watch.
And certainly, as you point out, Aaron, some of these tariffs were already in place under the previous Trump administration. He imposed them. President Biden didn't remove them. So do we know if these tariffs are going to go on top of the existing ones or what?
Well, we know that this is broadly part of Trump's aggression when it comes to foreign policy and the economy, trying to send a message to China. Of course, as you brought up in the poll, it's not something that's necessarily a priority for American voters. The understanding is that this does go on top of those tariffs, but we'll see once we get the details of that later today.
The other news is a federal judge in Boston who weighed in on whether the Trump administration can move forward with its plans to buy out thousands of federal employees. There's another ruling expected. What are the unions saying about this? And what are we hearing from Trump administration officials?
The president of the American Federation of Government Employees said they are pleased with a temporary pause. So they continue to believe that this program violates the law. They kind of view this as one of the many inflection points for Trump's efforts to revamp the federal workforce early in his second term. The Trump administration and the Office of Personnel Management says that this deadline of 11:59 p.m. tonight stands, and that's what they're telling federal government workers. But certainly there's a lot of confusion, especially since there's of 65,000 or more that have already accepted this buyout. Questions about whether that will stand. Hopefully, they're looking to get clarity from the judge's ruling later today.
And finally, Aaron, as you know, the Trump administration ordered the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to stop most of its work. This is an organization that has protected millions of Americans from unsavory business practices, whether the credit card companies or the banks with excessive fees. So why is this a target for the White House?
Yeah, this program was created under former President Obama's tenure as part of the Dodd-Frank Act. Senator Elizabeth Warren, the foil for Trump and many Republicans, was crucial to its creation. And it's been long criticized by conservatives as overreaching. As you brought up some of what the agency does, they have oversight over banks, mortgage originators. The general thought is that the functions of CFPB could be folded into the Department of Treasury per Trump officials. We'll wait to see if that actually takes place in the way that they wanted to. We're already seeing some core challenges to this effort.
Aaron, you may be too young to remember the old saying, a penny for your thoughts, but it sounds like even your thoughts are going to go up in price. They're going to get more expensive. What's going on with the pennies at the Mint?
Yeah, I do remember this being in the West Wing episode. Trump yesterday noted that it costs actually more to make the penny than what it's worth, but it is unclear if he does have the authority, as it is up to Congress that authorizes the manufacturing of coins. It does cost, according to the U.S. Mint, 3.69 cents to produce and distribute pennies. So certainly as Trump is trying to cut down government spending, the penny is one way he's looking at it.
I guess we'll never realize the savings that we have when we see something that's only 99 cents. Why not just make it $1? I mean, why not just make it $1, right, Aaron? I think maybe that's what they're going for. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate it as always.
Take care.
All right. According to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, an Israeli delegation that went to Doha for talks on the next phase of the Gaza ceasefire deal has returned to Israel this morning. Phase 1 of the deal appears to be holding. Hamas released 3 more prisoners, hostages, in exchange for some Palestinian prisoners over the weekend. But the thin and frail state of the hostages has sparked shock in Israel and beyond. Joining us for more on this is CBS News contributor Robert Berger. So, Robert, these 3 hostages that were released, even people who haven't been tracking this very closely were shocked at how gaunt and emaciated they looked. What are people in Israel saying?
Yeah, people were shocked when they were released by Hamas about how thin they were. And they're on TV here. They were juxtaposing pictures of what they looked like before and after the release. Now, according to doctors, they're suffering from malnutrition. They looked really, really thin. And a lot of people here, and also President Trump, have said it reminds them of pictures of Jewish prisoners from the Holocaust. So these are haunting images, and it's also putting a lot of pressure on the Israeli government. The families today were in the Knesset saying, Israel's parliament saying, look, there's not a lot of time for the remaining hostages, and they want Netanyahu to make a deal to get them out now.
The other question I have, Robert, regarding these 3 hostages that were released is one man whose wife was killed during that festival, that music festival. He was happy to see his child, but did he know that his wife had died during the massacre during the music festival?
No, this is the Bibas family. They're kind of symbols of the hostage crisis. 2 little kids, including a baby, and then the wife. So when he got into the helicopter with Israeli forces, he said, well, I can't wait to see my wife and kids. And then they had to tell him that, well, they're still in Gaza. According to Hamas, they're probably dead, but Israel hasn't confirmed that. But obviously a terrible shock for him when he got back.
So heartbreaking. So what do we know about the negotiations for the second phase of this deal?
Well, as you mentioned, the delegation has returned from Qatar, where they began talks on the second phase. It's interesting to note that this is a lower level delegation, which suggests that a deal on the second phase is a long way off. The first phase is going well. We've seen the release of 21 hostages and hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. Now, this is a 6-week ceasefire, and we're about halfway through. The complicated part is the second phase, because that calls for a complete end to the war. And what we've seen from these hostages releases is that Hamas is still in control in Gaza, and that's a big problem for Israel, which is one of the war goals is to destroy the group. So with Hamas still holding on to power there, it's possible we won't be able to get to a second phase of the deal.
All right, Robert Berger for us. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate it. All right, we know there's one person who's happy with the results. Let's bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Grant Gilmore with the first look at the national forecast. Grant, I won't be mad if all you do is talk about the Eagles.
We could. I mean, if that's what you want to do, we could easily talk about the Eagles for the rest of the show for sure. Look, obviously there's just that special energy in the air in Philadelphia this morning, and we're probably going to have that all week. But there's also going to be some other stuff in the air, and that's going to be a lot of winter weather. Let me zoom out and show you the map here. We've got nearly 30 million people underneath the threat for winter weather as we go throughout the next several days, from snow to sleet, freezing rain, and there's downright rain. The system that we're going to track actually hasn't even materialized yet. That happens as we go throughout the day today. But watch this system as we go through today into tomorrow. We've got rain. We've got a very thin line of some freezing rain, but that's a huge concern. But snow is going to be on the northern side of this, and then another system comes in right on his tail to bring in more winter weather, especially up towards the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes states, with more heavy rain across the southeast. Vlad, some places could pick up over a half inch of ice. And we're not even talking about snow before we get into potentially another system rolling in from the West Coast as we go toward the weekend. A lot to track, more details coming up here in just a bit. But I guess I'd have to say go Birds.
I mean, yeah, it would be, you'd probably not be able to walk home or get home if you didn't. Grant Gilmore, thank you, my friend. Appreciate it. All right now, the trial for the suspect accused of stabbing famed author Salman Rushdie is underway. Details from the opening statements next. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. The trial of the man accused of stabbing author Salman Rushdie is underway. The 77-year-old author was stabbed more than a dozen times back in 2022 while speaking in front of a live audience. Let's bring in CBS News correspondent Michael George. He's covering the trial for us this morning. So, Michael, what are prosecutors alleging happened during that incident in 2022?
Yeah, Vlad, this was a horrific attack, and it was all caught on video. So Rushdie was speaking in Chautauqua. He's actually giving a lecture on how to protect writers from harm when, according to prosecutors, Hadi Matar rushed the stage, tried to kill him. Bystanders jumped in to help. Rushdie tried to defend himself, and when it was all over, Rushdie was left blind in one eye and with permanent hand damage, but he survived the attack. He actually wrote a book about the attack and his recovery.
So what was the motive? What are prosecutors saying the motive was, and how do we see this playing out in court over the next couple of days?
Yeah, prosecutors say this all had to do with that fatwa. You'll remember way back in 1989, more than 30 years ago, Ayatollah Khomeini issued a fatwa, a call for Muslims to kill Rushdie over his book, The Satanic Verses, over alleged blasphemy. But here's the thing. The defendant in this case, he wasn't even born yet when that fatwa came out. This was more than 30 years ago. But they do say that he was motivated. He continued to be motivated by that, even though it happened decades ago.
Wow. And you're going to be covering the trial. Jury's been selected, and it kicks off today.
Yeah, we expect opening statements today. And Rushdie has said that he will testify, though he said he's not looking forward to facing his attacker in court.
All right. Michael George for us this morning. Michael, thank you very much, as always. This morning, Iran's president claimed that President Trump is aiming to bring Iran to its knees. The remarks were made during Iran's celebration marking the 46th anniversary of the Islamic Revolution. The country's president also claimed that the United States is not sincere in seeking negotiations with Tehran. I want to bring in CBS News national security contributor Samantha Vinograd, who is in Washington and joins me now to talk about all this. So Sam, how would you classify the relationship between the United States and Tehran right now?
The relationship between the United States and Iran at this moment is frosty at best. 46 years since the Iranian Revolution, the Iranian economy is under intensive pressure because of U.S. and other international sanctions, military pressure from Israel and the United States against its proxies throughout the region, and of course, Israel's direct attack within Iran itself. Energy shortages are racking the country. And Iran's nuclear program is continuing apace despite President Trump's announcement of restoring maximum pressure against Iran just last week, Vlad.
So what does the future for Iran look like during the Trump administration? You know, one of the things I've noted, Sam, is while the president continues to talk tough on Iran, he's also used language about, quote unquote, making a deal with Iran, and not sure exactly over what, but it does sound like he's open to some type of diplomacy.
Well, when we look at Iran's nuclear program, Vlad, Iran today is closer to a nuclear weapon than they've ever been in their history. They're really at a nuclear threshold. They have more higher grade enriched uranium than ever before, and their quote-unquote breakout time to actually translate that into a weapon is shortened. Now, the intelligence community has assessed that the regime has not decided to actually build a weapon, but they're closer than they've ever been before. President Trump withdrew the United States from the nuclear agreement with Iran back in 2018. And since coming back into office, President Trump has voiced a willingness to engage with Iran on how to curtail its nuclear program. On the Iranian side, we've heard mixed messages. The president of Iran expressed a willingness to potentially engage in negotiations, but then the supreme leader, who is ultimately going to be in charge of deciding whether to engage in negotiations, took those off the table. I will add one caveat, Vlad, having worked on the early days of the Iran nuclear deal under President Obama. Whatever we are hearing publicly is definitively not indicative of private messages that may be pass behind the scenes between the United States and Iran, either directly or via intermediaries. So I would say we are seeing signals that there's an openness on both sides to at least broach the topic of nuclear negotiations.
And yet, Sam, the president has revoked the security details of several former administration members, including the CIA Director Mike Pompeo, National Security Advisor John Bolton. We know that the United States, under President Trump and President Biden, carried out very successful operations against some key Iranian targets, including military leaders there. How dangerous is it for the president to have done something like that? How dangerous is it for folks like Pompeo and Bolton and others to be out there without any protection from nefarious Iranian agents?
Well, having seen the threat assessments, but without going into classified information, there remains an ongoing threat to former National Security Advisor John Bolton, to President Trump himself, and to a few others. We know that Iran remains intent on seeking retribution for the U.S. military strike that killed Qasem Soleimani. We also know that there have been court cases against individuals directed by the regime in Iran to carry out assassinations on U.S. soil. So it is certainly a dangerous move to remove John Bolton's security detail, among others. These assassination plots, as well as Iran's nuclear program, is a regime's trump card. Under enormous pressure from the United States, Israel, and international sanctions, these are their trump cards in terms of trying to dissuade the United States, dissuade Israel from taking more advanced action. And so they will likely hold on to their ability to conduct these plots, as well as their nuclear program, long enough to test U.S. credibility when it comes to actually engaging in meaningful negotiations.
All right, Sam Vinograd for us. Always great to have you, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks, Vlad.
Still ahead, a massive recall of baked goods nationwide, including some popular items found on Dunkin' Donuts shelves. Details next. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. Here's a look at some of the top stories we're following. In Alaska, the bodies of all 10 people killed in a commuter plane crash have been recovered and identified. The victims range in age from 30 to 58. Crews found the wreckage on a floating sheet of ice on Friday, one day after the plane went missing. Investigators are still working to determine why the plane went down. The city of Springfield, Ohio, is suing a neo-Nazi group. The lawsuit alleges the group unleashed a torrent of hate against Haitian immigrants and seeks unspecified damages. You'll remember Springfield was drawn into the spotlight during the presidential campaign, with President Trump falsely claiming Haitian. The federal suit accuses the neo-Nazi group known as the Blood Tribe of engaging in, quote, a campaign of harassment and intimidation. It also claims the group was behind multiple bomb threats around the city. And the FDA is recalling about 2 million baked goods, including some pastries sold at Dunkin' Donuts over a possible listeria contamination. The products in question were made by FGF brands before December 13, 2024. They include coffee rolls, fritters, and munchkins. The company says the recall does not include any items that are currently or were recently for sale in stores. Turning now to Capitol Hill, where lawmakers have a little more than a month to come up with a budget or risk a government shutdown. This is Republicans' race to shore up support for some of the president's most controversial cabinet nominees, with more hearings and votes scheduled this week. Let's bring in CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian to talk about it. So, Nicole, it seems that Congress is on track to approve most of the president's nominees. Can we expect that the Democrats now are, given some of the other things that are happening with regards to institutions, the Department of Education, USAID, that they might actually not play or not negotiate on the budget and might actually cause a shutdown as one of their negotiating ploys? What are you hearing about that?
Yeah, we'll kind of take that in two parts. You know, in terms of the confirmation process, we expect Senate Democrats to kind of hold the line, if you will, hold the floor as they did last week with Russ Vogt, really using up all the time that is allotted for debate. And so that's why, in terms of the confirmation votes that we're expecting this week, we expect them to really take the full 30 hours that it takes to reach that final confirmation vote. So we know the Senate later this afternoon is going to tee up a vote vote on Tulsi Gabbard's confirmation, although a final confirmation vote is not likely to happen until the middle of this week. Again, short of any kind of time agreement between Democrats and Republicans. Same thing for RFK Jr. He is expected to get a vote at some point, but again, we will likely see a lag between when that vote begins and then when it is completed, with, again, Democrats likely not conceding any of their time to Republicans. Now, on the other front, in terms of the budget, we're tracking a couple of things on that front. Certainly, there has been a lot of talk within the last couple of days with respect to President Trump's agenda. He continues to obviously issue a flurry of executive orders, but, Congress wants to back him up legislatively as well, at least congressional Republicans. So they are working on what's called a budget resolution, which will kind of be a vehicle to kind of load up all of his legislative priorities into one bill. So the Senate is set to get to work on that midweek. Lindsey Graham has already introduced a budget resolution. This is a little more narrow in focus, more targeted, to try to provide some funding, for instance, for border security, beefing up more security along the border, as well as dealing with issues like energy independence and defense. The House, on the other side, though, they are working on a bigger, broader package, one big, beautiful bill, if you will, in the words of President Trump and Speaker Mike Johnson, where they also want to fold in extending the president's tax cuts. So Speaker Johnson said over the weekend that they're very close to kind of releasing the outlines of that budget resolution, but that timetable may slide a little bit this week. So those are the items that we are following here on the Hill.
All right, Nicole, thank you very much as always, my friend. Happy Monday. More shakeups, as you heard from Nicole, are expected at the Department of Justice. Today begins Pam Bondi's first full week as U.S. Attorney General, and it's expected to come with some new policies and initiatives to revamp the department. I want to bring in CBS News Department of Justice correspondent Scott MacFarlane. Scott, the FBI has already seen a slew of potential layoffs. What more could we see before Kash Patel, should he be confirmed, takes over as director?
Yeah, this Monday begins a very destabilizing week, potentially inside the FBI. It's not just that there's this threat or prospect of mass firings or forced resignations. It's that nobody has any sense as to when they could happen. So one agent told us the agents are checking their email regularly, every few minutes, to see if that's the moment they get put on leave toward a possible firing. That is a distracting way to do your job, and you certainly don't want FBI agents who chase terrorists for a living to be terribly distracted. Pam Bondi entered this office as the nation's attorney general last week with a bit of shock and awe, Vlad, this series of new policies and orders, from reinstituting the pursuit of the death penalty in federal criminal cases to reallocating resources from the Foreign Influence Task Force, which is supposed to stop foreign countries from influencing U.S. government operations, putting them on duties to pursue drug cartels. Lots of shifts happening. We'd expect more of those in the coming days and weeks as the new leadership of the Department of Justice starts getting its roots in the ground and starts taking over more and more of the operation.
So, as you know, the Department of Justice is trying to restore Elon Musk's allies and give them access to Treasury payment systems. Why are they trying to gain access, and how is that going to play out in court?
Yeah, now that the Department of Justice is overseen by Trump appointees, they are now taking the position of supporting Elon Musk in his efforts. A prior Department of Justice may have tried to stop somebody from getting access to Treasury payment systems for those who have unclear tethers to the government. That notwithstanding, that's one of a few dozen legal cases that have popped up already. There'll be many more legal challenges to what Elon Musk, this Doge operation, and the Trump team are trying to do. The Department of Justice is now serving as their lawyers in court, trying to help Elon Musk along. What does he want with access to Treasury payment information, the thing that gets checks out to Americans? The argument the Trump administration is making, Vlad, is they're looking for waste, fraud, and abuse. And the best way to find that is getting into the systems themselves.
All right, Scott MacFarlane reporting for us from Washington. Scott, thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
All right, back to the Super Bowl. We know the fans in Philly were up late celebrating the Super Bowl win, but many also got up early to get the latest merchandise. Let's go to coverage from CBS News Philadelphia.
Where the doors opened a couple of hours ago, and those stuff just flattened like hotcakes there, Ross.
Yeah, Janelle, it's been hard to keep up with some of the stocking of the Super Bowl championship items. For example, these hoodies here. This table was completely stocked with hoodies, stacked like 10 high to start the morning, and you can see there's just not many left. In fact, the staff here just restocked this table, and it's already flown off the shelves. So we've been assured that they are well stocked with all championship merchandise, but just keeping up with the demand has been a challenge in its own right. But listen, we've seen a lot of smiling faces. We've heard a lot of "Go Birds" as these fans greet each other after what was just an epic night. And now they all find themselves in essentially the same position, trying to find the perfect fit so that they can wear their Super Bowl win proudly for all to see. That's what it's all about. Now, we have had some time to pick our way through this championship collection, and here's what stands out. There are several versions of Super Bowl t-shirts and hoodies for sale, and those have really been the big sellers so far. There are still plenty of those t-shirts and long sleeve t-shirts left, but the hoodies, like I mentioned, have really run out quickly. Hats have also been very popular. They got a winter hat version as well as a ball cap, but both of them bear the official Super Bowl champions emblem, what we're all looking for. And besides the apparel, they've also got Super Bowl champion towels, mugs, glasses, pennants, all for sale. Anything you can think of, really, they've got it. And the fans we talked to say that they had to buy something to commemorate one of the best wins in Eagles history.
I've been up all night waiting for Dick's to open up.
And now it's open, and what are your thoughts? I mean,
I love it. I'm going to get more.
Because I had to. I knew as soon I knew this was going to be sold out today, so I had to be here early to get this.
It's going to be like this for the week. You know, we can't wait to, see the parade and all that. So,
what are your thoughts on the merchandise? It's kind of your first view of that. Does it match up with the championship feeling you got going on right now?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. Can't wait to wear it. Sharp pride. And hopefully go to the parade.
Go Birds.
So many people gearing up for that epic parade this week. Now you can see behind me just the large crowd of people that continues to pour their way through all of this championship merchandise. It's really been a steady stream since they opened the doors at 7 o'clock this morning. If you're not able to make it here today and you still want some of this merchandise, not to worry. I've been assured by the staff here at Dick's that they're going to be getting more shipments of this championship merchandise all throughout the weekend. They're actually going to open up on on Friday, assuming that is parade day. Whatever day is parade day, they're going to be open early to make sure everyone can get their hands on some of this merchandise. Janelle, I'll send it back to you.
Ross, wow. How much are those?
All right. Let's bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Grant Gilmore. Grant, the only merchandise that I want is that a T-shirt that spells Eagles E-G-L-E-S, the way your mayor spelled it. Can I get one of those?
Right.
I'll probably wear that.
We'll get you one of those. we'll ship one up to you happily, as long as you sport it with pride. We'd be happy to do that for sure. That's good stuff, Vlad. But look, I mean, it is just an energy in this city this morning, which is fantastic. And you heard Ross talking about everybody excited to get out and get all the memorabilia, and many people doing it on very little sleep this morning, including yours truly. So let's break down what we got going on across the country this morning. Maybe that's one of the reasons for the misspelling mishap of Eagles. But let me show you this, though. We got nearly 30 million people underneath winter weather alerts. We've got winter weather advisories here, winter storm watches up into the Northeast. In fact, a winter storm warning where we've got a significant concern for some developing ice as we make our way through the day tomorrow and then into early Wednesday morning. Let me show you again those watches and warnings across the nation's heartland up into the mid-Atlantic and Northeast this morning. And you're saying, well, where's the system? And that's a good question because it has not developed yet, really starting to take shape as we go through the day today. Watch this low pressure system move out of the southern plains up into the southeast and mid-Atlantic as we go into the day tomorrow. Some places could pick up nearly 5 to 10 inches of snow, but it's going to be that prime spot right in between the snow and the rain where we could see some sleet and freezing rain that could really cause some issues, especially across portions of West Virginia. Just as that system moves out, we've got another storm system moving in from the plains, this one bringing more snow to the Midwest and upper Midwest as we make our way into Thursday before another system begins to take shape back over on the West Coast as we go toward the weekend. Let's talk about the snow totals. Again, some places, all in all, could pick up a decent amount of snow, especially from Kansas up into Michigan. Some places seeing nearly a foot of snow. The Northeast could see a good 3 to 5 inches, but it's that ice, especially across northwestern Virginia into eastern West Virginia. When you get up to around a ½ inch of that freezing rain and ice, that is a serious concern for some power outages. Meanwhile, on the southern side of the system, Vlad, not looking too bad in Miami either, with high temperatures around 83 degrees. Pretty warm south of that system, but bitterly cold to the north. Back to you.
All right. I'm there, Grant. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, my friend. All right. Vice President J.D. Vance is taking his first foreign trip since taking office. What to know about the International AI Summit he's attending in Paris and his planned talks with Ukraine's president later this week. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. As the fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in Gaza continues to hold, Israeli forces have stepped up operations in the West Bank in recent weeks. CBS News foreign correspondent Chris Livesay has traveled to the West Bank city of Jenin, where Israeli forces have been conducting a large-scale offensive since January 21st.
Well, there's a fragile peace in Gaza, but that's hardly the case here in the West Bank. We're driving right now through the city of Jenin, which has looked more like a war zone than Gaza has in recent weeks. We've spoken to people who were kicked out of their homes by the IDF, that's the Israeli military, as they perform what they consider to be clearing terrorist infrastructure. The people we spoke to were simply worried about getting back inside so that they could change their clothes. We saw the Israeli military plowing streets using these armored bulldozers in order to make it easier for them to get in and out of areas that they consider to be a terror threat, but also making it impossible for regular Palestinians to go back home to what they consider to be now a ghost town. We've also spoken to the victims of this heightened military operation. We spoke to the grandparents of a 2-year-old girl named Layla, who earlier this week was shot and killed. She was shot in the head as she and her mother were cowering in fear in their home just around dinner time, as the IDF, again, carrying out what it called to be an anti-terror operation, fired into their building. They showed us pictures of the drapes and the windows that had been shot through, and after it was all said and done, this little girl was killed. So we're here right now just to figure out exactly what is the point. Again, the IDF says it's to clear out terrorists, but if we talk to the people here on the ground, they think it's all part of a much bigger plan to kick Palestinians out of the West Bank so that Israel can annex that territory. Back to you.
All right, Chris, thank you very much. Vice President J.D. Vance has arrived in Paris as world leaders and tech CEOs gather in the French capital for a 2-day summit on artificial intelligence. The vice president is also expected to discuss the ongoing war in Ukraine during a working lunch with French President Emmanuel Macron. I want to bring in CBS News correspondent Elaine Cobb, who's joining us live from Paris. Elaine, this is the vice president's first trip on the world stage. What is this AI summit specifically all about?
Vlad, the summit is hoping to look at what AI means for people today, tomorrow, and in the future, what way it's going to go. French President Emmanuel Macron said that AI is very important. It will help us to work better, play better, care better, referring to the huge use of AI in medical applications. But there's concern here about what is happening with AI, and to make sure that even though people like President Macron are not keen on regulation at this stage, they do want is to include humanist values, as he put it, so that it's not just a race to make money. Now, this is also Europe's chance to carve itself out a spot on the world stage in AI. The US, of course, a huge leader there. Revelation of DeepSeek AI. So this is also being seen as a chance for the Europeans to say, we're here too, and France has announced $110 billion worth of private investments in AI here. So Vice President Vance is here partly to represent the US about AI. He will give a keynote speech there tomorrow. But of course, this is also, being his first trip abroad, his chance to meet with other world leaders. China's vice premier is here. The EU president is here. And this will be his chance to talk to people about not just AI, not just technology, not just the markets, but international relations. And that's very important for him too. Vlad?
All right, Elaine, thanks for the update. Appreciate it. Coming up, folks, much more news ahead. Stay with us. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. It was Team Rough versus Team Fluff in the Puppy Bowl yesterday. The game featured more than 100 rescue pups and 11 special needs dogs. And it was a much closer game than the actual Super Bowl. Paws Allen, a rescue star from Buffalo, New York, scored the final touchdown, leading Team Fluff to a 68-66 victory. The Puppy Bowl, of course, raises money for dog shelters across America. Let's bring in CBS News Philly meteorologist Grant Gilmore with the final look at the national forecast. Hey, Grant.
Hey, Vlad, let's get a quick check on the forecast as we go through the rest of the week. Fortunately, all is calm across Philadelphia today. Certainly, all the Eagles fans need just a day to recover after last night. But then the activity picks up across the southern parts of the United States as we go overnight tonight into the day tomorrow. A pretty strong winter storm brings a lot of snow to the mid-Atlantic and Northeast, heavy rain to the south. We'll also see some freezing rain across portions of the Appalachians. Back to the west, another storm system right on the heels brings another round of heavy snow to the Midwestern states, the upper Great Lakes. That system moves east. We'll see multiple days of travel interruption before a third system starts to move in from the West Coast as we make our way into the second half of the week, into the weekend. Snowfall totals are going to be pretty large across the Midwestern states. Some places could see upwards of 10 to 11 inches of snow. And then I mentioned the ice, Vlad. That's going to be a big concern through West Virginia and northwestern Virginia, up to a half inch of ice in some places. Back to you, and fly, Eagles, fly.
All right, Grant, thank you very much, my friend. It does it for me, but stay right where you are. After the break, Mugo Diwe is live from San Francisco with all the news breaking from coast to coast. This is CBS News 24/7.